Well, if you're a regular to this show and this station, that we don't allow many lefties, but there's only one lefty I have on because the man speaks more common sense than anybody. Delighted to see him, fresh from a stag do. Oh, yeah. Matthew Torbitt, former Labour Adviser. How was the stag do, son?
It was good. Do you know what? I was a bit nervous because I've been teetotal 2.5 years now, recovering alcoholic, and I only knew the groom, 13 lads, and I thought, are they going to quite get it? Are they going to be like, go on, you can have one, and there's that peer pressure. They're all amazing. I had a great time. I called it a night when I'd sort of had enough. I was tired more than anything, but...
Getting old, son, now, aren't you?
Well, that would be it, really.
How old are you now?
34 now.
60 in 6 weeks.
No, you don't look it.
You're a great man. I will continue to push you. Now, the one thing that people love about having you on this station, they always say Matthew Torbitt's the only lefty that speaks sense, and what is honest. We've talked repeatedly about this government. I'm going to start differently today. Rachel Reeves has today raised the hopes of millions of pensioners by confirming that changes to the winter fuel payments will kick in this year. You and I have spoken about how I see it as their poll tax moment. I thought it was ludicrous. I think you immediately alienate 12 million pensioners. I thought Brendan O'Neill made a really salient point just then when he said even the U-turns being screwed up. No detail, no specifics, just that belief again that you are saying something, Rachel Reeves, that's been told to you by a focus group, or finally you've got your head into, we were smashed in the local elections because actually people find this repugnant and revolting, especially people in there, you know, you've paid, like your dad, it's just not acceptable. This isn't, I don't understand. Somebody said earlier that when you're in opposition you calibrate the way to behave. Did nobody, Matt, seriously go, this is political suicide, and it's not getting any better with the U-turn because they look incompetent, and they are incompetent in this.
No, nobody did say that, and actually the person that invented a job for himself is Rachel Reeves, his political secretary. The Chancellor has never had a political secretary in all these years, but he'd done a good job of sort of killing the left and had got in with Morgan and whatever else. I believe it was him that said, no, do it. Do it.
Who is this?
Matt Pound. Matt Pound was the one that said, do it, we need to do it. There's two things on this. An MP on the left reminded me, I said, it's pointless they're even doing this, you know, we've ruined it already, and he said, no, it's right that she does it because people are protected, and also it means they may eventually give in on other things. For those of us on the progressive side of politics, we need to take any victory we can. Secondly, the reason why the plan isn't forthcoming, I don't think she's been told. People forget that Keir Starmer announced that he was going to make these sort of changes or whatever at a conference that was abroad.
I thought it was a Prime Minister's question time.
No.
Was it before that?
Before that. And I think he's decided it on the hoof. Well, she's now, unfortunately, and I wouldn't say I feel sorry for her necessarily, but she's got to go and find the money, and there's no money. So that's why she can't announce a plan. I think she's been totally blindsided, and I would say actually purposefully.
Really? Now, we talked about this before I went away.
I think the more I've spoke to people in Westminster, the amount of briefings against Rachel Reeves, she's absolutely going after the budget.
Now, this is really interesting because I don't know, because my brain doesn't go back that far, and it's only been 3 hours, but one of our guests earlier said, I think it was Jack Elson, the new political editor of The Sun from Monday. Jack said that he felt that they're so wedded together, the Chancellor and Starmer, that the other side of your argument is that if he casts her aside, history will show, Kwasi Kwarteng and others, you get rid of your Chancellor, you're probably next.
Hopefully. I think that would be good. I think
you genuinely, as an ex-Labour advisor, think that Starmer's time is up?
Yeah, and I say that as a current Labour member. It's ridiculous that 10 months in, but I think you could have said this 3 months ago. The thing about this U-turn is U-turns can be done well if they're done quickly.
Yeah.
So I said on this programme, if I remember rightly, about the budget, don't have a rabbit out the hat. The rabbit out of your hat should be, do you know what, we've listened. We're a government that listens. We're not going to do the winter fuel because actually there are other ways we maybe could raise this money. I think that would have got her a little bit of credibility. Yeah. Now, the U-turn is a U-turn. We'll take it on the sort of progressive left. However, it's seen as inauthentic, and it's happened because you've been battered at the ballot box in May. Therefore, nobody really cares, and your political credibility and electoral sort of suitability is not changed at all. People go, well, we don't care because you're only doing this because you've got to. You're
I think there are.
You care.
You know this more than me, but I think there are moments in politics that stick forever.
Yeah.
And I don't see how Starmer and Reeves ever lose that moniker. Cancelled winter fuel payments. We can talk about net zero. We can talk about defence. We can talk about immigration. We can talk about everything. But that. I remember saying to you at the time, is almost one of the most core parts of our society. Pensioners. It's like, let's throw the veterans. Ridiculous, right? There's a guy I spoke to yesterday, was impressed with Al Khan's, by the way. In the defence.
Nice guy.
Nice
guy.
Seems
okay.
You know, he was switched on, and he admitted that they've made mistakes.
Why? He's not from a political background. He's fairly normal. He's fairly new to politics. Therefore, he sees it as a duty in the same way he's seen the armed forces. He doesn't believe in the spin. He'll sort of answer things as he sees them, and I think looks good because of that. Really.
Going back to what you're saying, you think she's being briefed against, and you believe that Rachel Reeves is not long for this world politically.
I don't know anybody at the moment in Labour who doesn't think that. She's done as far as people are concerned. She's toxic on the doorstep. Keir's bad enough, but she's the one where all these decisions have come from, and people can see her as that. I said it to you this time last year, was it? This has all the possibilities of being terminal, and I think this has been proven to be true.
Who would replace her as Chancellor if she goes after the budget?
Well, this is the question. So we were thinking about this earlier today. I was talking to a couple of MPs, and really you want an ally in, but the problem is, people were saying about Darren Jones, who's sort of her deputy, if you will, as Chief Secretary of the Treasury. Well, he's that wedded to the Reeves project, it would seem bizarre, and there will be all sorts of things he's tweeted or interviewed and said that would go back against what he's doing, because the only way you can sort of, I think we're finished, we're losing the next election, right?
Do you really?
Yeah. I don't see. Do you know the only way, and even then it's a huge uphill task, the only way this could ever be turned around is for somebody to become leader who isn't in the building. And I think the only person that is Andy Burnham, because you cannot tie any of these unpopular decisions to him. He's one of the only politicians up and around the Red Wall that people like, and there's positivity. He sounds normal. I think he's learnt a lot from his 2 failed leadership bids, and also from being Mayor of Manchester, and I think he connects with people in a way that Keir absolutely doesn't. The problem is, they're not going to let him in, because they'll know as soon as he tries to come in, if he goes, right, I'm standing down as Mayor of Manchester and I'm going into this by-election where somebody's died, or there is an MP in the Cabinet who's always wanted to be Mayor of Manchester and maybe there's a deal that could be done there. Them lot around Keir, they're not letting him in, because they're going to be out of power, aren't they? It's totally obvious what will be happening. I think at this point, we're done. Like, we're losing.
Genuinely, you do?
Yeah, no.
10 months in?
I was at a lecture today, halfway through the day. Sir Michael, I've forgotten his name. He's the Professor of Government at Oxford University.
Yeah.
And I couldn't disagree with anything he said. And he was very negative. And he said he was overjoyed when Labour won. Finally, we might change things. And he spoke almost the language of reform. And I think he was a former Labour member until very recently, about how essentially this has been coming because the elites down here, very London-centric, have absolutely ignored anywhere north of Birmingham for the last 40 or 50 years. And actually, I'd argue forever, if I'm totally honest. Growing up in Manchester, you would feel second class compared to those in London and those with opportunities elsewhere. You felt like people don't care. And his view, which I didn't necessarily disagree with, is that it's reforms to lose. And I think in this sort of weird parallel or maybe academic game, maybe it's needed. Maybe it's needed. Maybe.
It's very interesting if you speak to people about politics in general and how it's always been one party either for one term or two, followed by another party, blah, blah, blah. The criticism of the Labour Party, and the Tories, by the way, but the criticism of the Labour government is that none of them have really had a job. They all get master's degrees in politics and go and study in think tanks somewhere, in, as you say, within the M25. The thing about reform that's fascinating for me is I genuinely believe that the British people are so fed up for many, many reasons. They feel like they're not being put first, that they'd actually accept mistakes, failure, attack. That Trump idea of, this is what I believe in, and I've said it so many times on the show, come with me. I'll be honest with you, there'll be days that are good and days that are bad. I'll make mistakes, I'll cock things up, but I'll do my best by you. I think the British people are crying out for that, and that's why I think it is reforms to lose. But let's talk about that. 4 years out. It's a long time, 4 years. And you know, the attacks on reform will undoubtedly start, probably not from Badenoch, because in 4 years' time she'll probably still be doing a review as to what went wrong. You lost because you lied, love. That's why your party lost. Well, it's true. That annoys me so much as well. But it is Farage's to lose. Do you think that he can put together the right team, the right structures, the right organisation to genuinely form? And you're Labour Adviser. You think that reform could form the next government, the majority government?
I don't know if it'd be a majority, this is the thing. I mean, I think 4 years, long time to turn this around. Do you know what? 4 years could get a lot worse for Labour as well. That's the other thing. This is the problem. Dominic Cummings, I thought, had it right in his interviews last weekend.
Yeah.
And he said, up to now, which is totally true. I mean, I speak to Nigel's team a lot. I get on with Nigel, not necessarily Nigel, but Nigel's team. It's always been Nigel and a smartphone up to now. And it's a one-man band. If he, you know, dropped dead tomorrow, that's it. Reform are done. I think people might still look to it as an alternative, but he is the best communicator,
in British
political
politics.
Communicator in this country at the moment, by far. There's no getting away from that. If it's still him and a smartphone, their cap will be 50, 100, 150 seats. Now, what Cummings said he suggested to Farage over dinner is you need a whole team of people, both behind the scenes, but you need to offer up essentially a cabinet, spokespeople that will say, look, this guy will be my Chancellor if we're elected, this guy will be my Home Secretary. And that way, people can go, well, look at their cabinet and look at the state of this one. I'd much rather that one. And it was interesting, Farage gave an interview, I think it was yesterday, to the Telegraph, and he said what he's now looking at doing is creating a team, and basically he's following what Cummings has said. In that case, it could be a majority, because it could get much worse.
Did you think, I know we're going to say, did you think you'd be saying this 10 months ago when Labour swept to power with a blinding majority?
I said on election night, live, to respond to the exit poll, this is the best it will get. I'm happy to... I've dug it out before because people didn't believe me and thought I've just joined this anti-Labour thing. No. This is the reason why I left after the election, because I didn't believe it was going to work. I'd worked with these people up close, and I said what worries me is that we're now going to get further managed decline. I hope we aren't. Seemingly we are. I said I hope we don't get more managed decline, and at the next election it will be a choice between potentially Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. People in Number 10, people around Labour laughed at me, and they didn't pick up the same thing I picked up in areas in the north, where as soon as Nigel came into the race and entered late into the general election, the momentum was sweeping that way and people were over the moon. They hated us, but they hated the Tories more. We essentially won by default, and if we didn't respond to people's concerns, people's issues, then they're going to sweep ahead of us. And it's happened.
I love having you on, mate. You know you're always welcome. It's an absolute pleasure. I always find it fascinating to listen to you forever. Matthew Torbitt, former Labour advisor on Talk Drive.